been an interesting time from yesterday up until this point, and special thanks to Andrew and the entire team for putting this together. I have 14 minutes, 33 seconds, right, to run you through my subject, Africa and the future. Africa and the future of banking. Okay, so within the last 10 years, the emergence of new banks, right, has literally changed, shaped, altered, give it your own words, the entire banking landscape, right? The interesting thing about this is if this was unique to Africa, my conversation would have gone a different ways. But it's not unique to Africa. Can I move around? I'm sure you can hear me, right? Yes. So I'm not tied to this. It's not unique to Africa. We've seen the same shift across Europe, right? We've seen the same shift in the Asian market. We've seen the same shifts in America, right? And while thinking through this presentation, I thought to myself that...
They're recording it, so just...
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so while thinking through this presentation, I thought to myself that there was a need to really interrogate the foundation. Something must be triggering this shift, right? Because if this was just about Africa, you would have said maybe the culture, maybe the people, maybe the way of life of the people shaped a particular industry. But we're seeing an interesting shift that it's literally moving through the globe, right? This isn't something that is new. It's as old as mankind, right? And it happens when a generation begins to ask questions, right? Every generation gets to a point where we begin to ask questions. When we ask questions, it births a form of hunger in us. The end result of this question is innovation, right? So we'll find ourselves living in a generation that start asking questions. So the best way I could put words together to describe this change is a product of a behavioral shift from a generation that decides how we want to interact. I wouldn't want to say they. By the time I thought of shifting this to we, I had sent the slide. So I take responsibility to these questions also. So we started questioning, we questioned how we want to interact. It gave birth to social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, keep naming. We questioned how we want to school. It gave birth to online studies in its different models, right? We questioned how we want to work. It gave birth to hybrid, remotes, right? So you literally see this shift happening across the globe, right? We questioned how we want to shop. E-commerce, Amazon, Alibaba, name them, right? Then it hits the financial system. How we want to keep our money, how we want to bank our money. That's where digital banking came from. That's my belief. And so I don't take you too far ahead. Every time those questions are being asked, it births innovation, right? And this conversation for me, it's part of the basic foundation to which we're building OjirehPrime, asking ourselves this question, because if we understand these questions, we would predict the next decade, right? And we need to understand this cycle. I want to walk you through the automobile industry. Not my generation, but generations time past asked the same question. It birthed automobiles, right? And every time innovation is birthed, right, the technology behind that innovation becomes the competitive advantage, right? So you find brands like General Motors, Mercedes, Toyota, Honda, and the rest. And the early players of this, the early players of that existed at the point the generations back then asked these questions, sold their brands on the back of the innovation behind the answers to the questions the generations were asking. Follow my line of thought. So General Motors back then would sell on the back of, we're producing something that has the ability to move you faster from point A to point B. Imagine Mercedes using that as the punchline for selling their product. It's not going to work. Right? So innovation becomes the hallmark for competition, for the fallout of the questions these generations ask, right? And we find these things repeating across history up until this time, where we ask questions. Every time we ask questions, so you would best describe it as a behavioral thing that moves from generation to generation, right? We've asked our questions. It has altered everything from the way we interact, the way we school, the way we work, the way we shop, the way we bank, right? And we've identified this thing to be a generational thing. A time would come, we don't know where banking is going to, but it's a circle. We're going to get back there, not this generation. Maybe the next 2, 3, 4 generation would come back, ask questions again, and alter the way things are being done, right? So when questions are asked, it births innovation. When innovation introduces competition, better put that way. I'll go straight to my next slide. So I came up with a very simple, what I best describe as a model. Pardon the arrows moving wrongly, right? We live, every generation is born into a traditional model, right? When they start asking questions, it births innovation. And when these questions start introducing innovation, the initial players that provide the answers to these questions are best described as innovative companies, right? But there's one interesting thing innovation does. It introduces competition. You just need the first person to do it, right? So sometimes November last year, ChatGPT launched, and the whole world went, wow. Between November and now, literally every 2, 3 weeks, there's an AI being launched, right? So that was innovation, right? Innovation sets the tone for competition, right? And that's why being privileged to lead a digital bank, I'll tell you one of our favorite sayings in the office. We strongly believe that technology in itself, it's not a competitive advantage in this present age and time if the experience of the users, it's not on the center stage, right? Because banking has moved from traditional system, generations have asked questions, and the end result of that question is it has introduced innovation into the system, and this innovation led to digital banks springing up across the globe, right? And literally every now and then, there's a new digital bank being launched, and it doesn't matter how intelligent my engineering team are, right? It doesn't matter the sleepless nights our product guys put together to get a product out, right? The market is just waiting for your launch date. The day you launch, your competitor looks at it and assembles their team together. 2 weeks later, they're launching, right? And as founders, we need to interrogate this interesting cycle of questions giving birth to innovations, innovation setting the tone for competition, competition being established. We believe that every time competition is being established, customer experience would win. It's one part of a business that we barely talk about. And when we talk about customer experience, I would explain our concept of customer experience at OjirehPrime to you. Customer experience for us, or what we see out there in the market, starts with you having an idea, stepping out into the market and saying that we've launched, right? You get a SIM card, put it on the phone, put it on the table, and every time that phone rings, it's a complaint. Every time that phone rings, it's a complaint. So most businesses feel that just get somebody, give her a name, customer care, support associate, secretary. We just get some names behind it, and your primary assignment is every time the mail comes in, there's a template. Dear customer, we understand, we're sorry for the experience you're going through. We're looking at it at the moment, and or if it gets too much, I've escalated the situation. Our engineering team will look at it, right? And when this complaint gets too much, what happens next? This is becoming boring. Let's outsource it, right? And you find companies saying, I think there's some companies out there that they just pick calls. So they view experience of the customer as a cost center, right? That is distracting, right? That feels like, just get these guys, there's a template about it. But for us, as a digital bank, we believe that that part of the business that looks like, why should I invest here, is what will define the next decade, right? Coming from the standpoint of banking, we've asked the question, innovation has been introduced, competition is being established, and we need to ask ourselves, what will shape the market in the next decade? We strongly believe the experience of the customer will shape who would win or who would lose. So you can literally look at my slide. On this part is this decade, right? That shows the transition from traditional model into innovative model. On the next slide is the next decade. And we feel we would witness that transition from this competition that is established as a product of the innovative ideas we're all shooting out as digital banks. And the experience of those users will define competition. And I tell you, this is why we set up OjirehPrime. And on this slide, it's no different from what I say, that over the next decade, customer experience will win. We're very passionate about this. We strongly believe it, right? And we invest in, we call it support system at OjirehPrime. We invest in customer experience. That's our biggest department, right? We feel that in Africa particularly, right, with 700 million young persons, that if you want to win in the next decade, then customer experience, it's one part of business you need to look at strongly. And I wanted to pause for you to focus on the picture a little bit. Africa would account for 25% of global population by the year 2050. This is my favorite topic. This is the foundation to which everything we're doing at OjirehPrime is built on, right? And I'll tell you a little bit about this. It means that a child who is born today will be 27 years by then. And a child whose current age is 10, 20, 30, or 40 would be 37, 47, 57, or 67 years by then. You'll be speaking to a generation that has lived a lifetime on technology, right? A generation that really doesn't understand a lot of the things we're privileged to experience. A generation that defines banking as a mobile app that you download, not a physical building that you walk into. For a continent that would account for 25% of the global population, you really don't want to mess with that. You really don't want to mess with that. And time is moving so fast that my message to everyone is, if there's anything to bet on, it's the continent of Africa. If there's anywhere to put your money behind, it's the startups in Africa. If there's any risk to take, it's to bet on the fact that in 27 years from today, for every 4 person that stands globally, 1 is from Africa. And this is the hallmark of everything we're doing at OjirehPrime. And you know, one of the biggest challenge for a startup is this. It's difficult to give a startup a topic to talk about. And he doesn't talk about his company and doesn't talk, particularly if he's raising. So I thought to add a few slides about our raise and all that. All right? At least I still have time, you guys. Thank you. So this is why we bettered OjirehPrime. We're mobile-only digital banks that helps young Africans transact for free, pay bills seamlessly, and enjoy savings in the most innovative way. And for the next chapter, for the next paragraph, you can snap it and read it later. All right, so basically we're a digital bank and mobile only, and we're strongly, strongly betting on the future of Africa. We started in 2016, interestingly, as an e-commerce business, focused on groceries. And by 2017, we noticed 96% of payments were made via bank transfers rather than payment via cards. And we're doing so well, we had just 54 customers that shop from us on a monthly basis. We sent every one of them a mail that, hey, thank you for shopping from us the last 1 year. We noticed your payment went in this direction, so we thought to ask, why this option rather than your card? Every one of them responded, sorry, we can't expose our card details, fear of cyber fraud and all that. We didn't know that that was the turning point for everything we're doing. That was a case of the customer pointing us in the direction where we needed to innovate towards. And this is how we came up with a reloadable prepaid card that you can fund and shop. And for us, the whole idea was helping the ecosystem, getting people to shop more online. And our whole dream was to get 100 cards out there, 54 to our existing customers, and the remaining balance as acquisition strategy, just to get to a 100 customer milestone. But between 2018 and 2020, interestingly, we had grown to 40,000 users of this card who were not interested in our e-commerce business, right? And for them, the card meant different things to different persons, budgetary control, utility bill, and all that. It's at that point we knew by 2019 that we're playing in something called digital bank because we didn't have a physical example in Nigeria, right? There was no digital bank making the news 2018 that would say, oh, we're trying to build like this. So we didn't know what we're building. And when people ask us then that, what are you guys building? We say, we don't know. We don't want to deceive you. We just know that we have for now, we have prepaid card. We're pushing it out. And we're paying very close attention to what the customers are saying to us. And we just want to innovate in the direction the customer goes, right? And thanks to the UK, Monzo. Exposure to Monzo, right, was what gave me a clue to what we were building. 2020, we acquired a microfinance bank that was 7 times bigger than us. It was one of our biggest feats. We didn't know we could do it, but eventually pulled it through. 2021, worked on our technology. 2022, launched the mobile app. We grew to 850,000 users as of today. And we're making big bets this year on multi-currency, right? Moved HQ to the UK and launching very soon in the UK. And currently we're raising 17 million in pounds, USD 21. And as I wrap up, it will help us fund our growth by additional 1.5 million accounts the next 1 year. Free banking is one of our value proposition, and we estimate that over the next 12 months, we'll be having 390 million transaction count, and that should cost about 6.8 million in pounds, right? And products, top talent, and the rest. Summary of my talk is bet on Africa. Thank you. Pardon?